Do you think that part of what organizers and activists should be, I guess, like petitioning for is some change, some reform within the actual legal system itself?
Absolutely. And, for the first time on the news this year, I heard the term qualified immunity. And as a civil rights attorney, that's something that we deal with in each and every civil rights cause of action. And to hear the community as a whole recognize and begin to understand challenges within our legal system that affects the ability of citizens to seek justice when their rights have been violated is a real big step in the right direction.
Can you give a little more context to qualified immunity for people who are not familiar with what that is?
Yes, qualified immunity is a legal doctrine in the United States federal law that shields government officials from being sued for discretionary actions performed while they're in their official capacity, unless their actions violate clearly established federal law or constitutional rights. And that's a threshold question with any civil rights case, is whether or not this officer would be entitled to qualified immunity. And if an officer is entitled to qualified immunity in a civil rights context, that officer essentially is successful in their suit and the case is dismissed. And that's a real sad day for any victim or family of a victim involved in a police motivated incident of excessive force or constitutional violations.
Do you think that the position of the district attorney should be reevaluated, considering how much power that position holds, and knowing that the district attorney is oftentimes the sole person who is holding up the process for police victims to get justice?
As a former member of law enforcement myself, I understand that the district attorney's office and the police department and law enforcement as a whole are tied at the hip. It's hard to prosecute officers one day and then the next day expect them to testify on your behalf and help you prosecute another defendant. And so the challenges of having district attorneys in the position of bringing charges against the same officers that they're working with on a daily basis is a big challenge and problem with our system. And I think that's really the result of why we've had such a pushback from district attorneys on charging police, even in clear-cut cases where it just seems so sensible to bring charges. There's pushback even in those clear-cut cases.
Knowing that you have experience in pursuing legal charges against the government or, police departments, what do you anticipate is going to happen in the George Floyd case?
The difference in the George Floyd case and some of the ones that I've dealt with is the aggressive stance that the Attorney General has taken there in Minnesota, and standing up and letting the world know that these officers are being held accountable like any other criminal defendant. And I think that was required under the circumstances, especially in light of all the civil unrest. But also the life-changing video that we have that really brought all this to light, made it very difficult for any district attorney or attorney general to ignore. And I think it's the age of video and technology that's bringing to light things that have been happening for decades that have gone unspoken because there were no witnesses. It was the suspect's word against police. And if it's the suspect against the police, the suspect is going to lose, and their version of events is not going to be the accurate one in a court of public opinion or a court of law oftentimes.
I'm in St. Paul in front of the governor's mansion where a car caravan protest is currently taking place. We know in Minnesota that the number of COVID cases has increased dramatically. And so people in their cars trying to stay safe, but also trying to get a message across. If you remember, the day after the election, 640 people, more than 640 people were arrested for protesting. And so these protesters today are demanding that those charges be dropped against those individuals. And so they're coming to the governor's mansion because it's been said that the governor is the one who issued the order to kettle those protesters on the highway the day after the election and to arrest them. And so 646, to be exact, people were arrested that night, issued citations, and the community is demanding that those charges be dropped. They say that they have the right to peacefully protest, and that night they say that's exactly what they're doing.
Dozens of cars, people honking and chanting for justice.
I'm out here demanding that the governor, mayor, everybody drop the charges against those of us who were peacefully protesting on November 4th.
Loretta was arrested in what she believes was a violation of her First Amendment right to protest.
It was unnecessary to arrest us for peacefully protesting, and my child unfortunately was out there, had to witness me getting cuffed and everything. So I don't know, for me, it was upsetting. For my kid, it was upsetting.
Hundreds cited for taking the action onto Interstate 94, where protesters were blocked in by police for over 5 hours. Authorities stating that it's illegal to protest on a highway.
Marching on Selma was illegal. Marching on Washington was illegal. People have to demand that change happens. It's not something that's freely given to us.
I get followed by the police, and I'm paranoid, and I said, I'm white. Imagine if I was black and was followed. How paranoid I would be. Because you're more apt to be murdered like Flando was.
Allies and activists exited their cars, blocking traffic in front of the governor's mansion.
Drop the charges! Drop the charges!
And after a few brief speeches, the protest ended with the cha-cha slide. The concern that remains is that if all 646 people dispute their citation, which many of them said they will, how will an already backed up system process more than 600 new cases?
Like it never stopped. Can you bring it to the top?
In St. Paul, I'm Georgia Fort.
Not just Minneapolis media, but we got people from the Los Angeles Times here. We got people from the New York Times here. So they know this story, and you're getting it first, Georgia. This story really could blow up in a way that we can't even fathom.
Calvin Horton life matters. Calvin Horton life matters.
I am the lead attorney for the family of George Floyd. I think all of the world knows about George Floyd. But then I get this call into my office from this young lady, Khadijah Horton, who says her father was protesting for justice for George Floyd 2 days after his death, and a white business owner shot and killed him from inside his store, shooting out into the crowd of protesters. And so she said, it's almost as if everybody's paying attention to George Floyd and nobody's paying attention to my father. His life mattered too.
I just want to say we're absolutely heartbroken at the fact that the man who was able to shoot my dad in his back and kill him is still free. We want justice for my dad, and we aren't going to stop until we see it.
Amen. Then when I thought about it, I said, hold on, a business owner shoot from inside the store outside into protesters, man, that is not right. There is no way, Georgia, that can happen if it was another group of people. But I guess because this was a black man protesting for George Floyd, they said, it's not that big of a deal. And I said, I'll help. And so I'm here in Minneapolis today to demand justice for Calvin Horton, because Calvin Horton life matters too.
We are reminded over and over again that there seems to be two justice systems in America. That's right. One for Black America and one for white America.
Listen. Can you talk about some of the discrepancies that you found in looking at this case?
I found three very important discrepancies. Number one, you just have the notion that a business owner is inside his store and he shoots out into the crowd and he kills a man. We believe, based on all relevant evidence, he shoots him in the back. And the fact that nobody was even arrested and charged is the biggest discrepancy when you really get down to the crux of the matter. But then you find, as you dig a little deeper, even more just ironic things. I mean, things that will shock your conscience. The medical examiner says that he died from multiple shots into his chest. However, we got video. I mean, objective video that has ocular proof that there are no injuries to his chest. So why would the medical examiner then put out such a report unless they're trying to conspire to cover something up? And why would they do that is what the family is asking. I know the Black Lives Matter leader said it's the art of the cover-up here in Minneapolis when black people and brown people are killed by white people. And so we're here to try to say you at least have to give this family, especially those 7 beautiful little black children, answers as to why you are not going to prosecute the killer of their father, who was simply in the protest demanding justice for George Floyd, and now we're demanding justice for Calvin Horton. And the third discrepancy, which is huge, is just the fact that it seems like when people of color start protesting, exercising our First Amendment rights to peaceful assembly and freedom of speech, saying that Black Lives Matter, I mean, it's like it's a different set of rules where pepper spray, they shoot rubber bullets, and then in Calvin Horton's case, they even shoot you and kill you. But when you juxtapose that with the militia in Michigan that went into the state house with guns and automatic rifles, semi-automatic rifles, nobody shot them with pepper spray. Nobody shot them with rubber bullets. And none of them were killed. And the police protected them. But then in George Floyd protests, it's like the police said, oh, we can't do nothing. You know, we're not getting involved. Because there were police on the scene when Calvin Horton was killed. And you're like, well, why didn't y'all be proactive? And why is it that it's almost as if black people don't have a right to the First Amendment with being subjugated to excessive force and brutality?
Can you share what your involvement in this case how it's already impacted the police's involvement and how they're actually now taking this case serious?
In every case I get involved with, I always want to try to, not just by word but by deed, send a message to our children that we do believe Black Lives Matter and that we say that their future is the most important thing to us. It's real. And so immediately what I started doing when I got here with attorney Jeff Storms and attorney Jill Brinsbros, I literally said, y'all, we have to make the argument to the court of public opinion, not just for Minneapolis, but for America. Because the precedents that could be set by this case, if we don't speak truth to power and give a voice to the voiceless, man, can you imagine all the protests going on across America for my clients, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery? And if business owners started to just shoot indiscriminately into crowds killing people, and they say, oh, because one or two people may have rioted, that gives you justification to shoot innocent people? What kind of precedence would that be? What kind of America would that be? Because there's a larger conversation here, even greater than just the death of Calvin Horton. I mean, this is talking about the First Amendment rights, the very foundation, the bedrock of American democracy.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for your work, for your commitment to fighting for justice, for our country, for our people, for our children. And I want to thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. You have a little one.
I have 3.
3 little ones.
12, 2, and 1.
So you understand why we're fighting.
I do.
And I'm praying for their future.
Thank you.
Are we going to keep fighting when we are in heaven? I think we should peace. We should find love. We should find tolerance. We should find understanding.
Who will protect our children when the streets continue to prove untrustworthy of the challenge behind their smiles? When it's no longer safe for your child to play in the front yard gated by the homes of safe haven because they were behaving so suspiciously. Suspected water guns used to get us through that police's heat, but no competition for the police's heat. I thought that was my taser. Gunned down innocently, and he hasn't even met his teens. The system systematically set up for my downfall, all because my skin has been penetrated by the sun's core. Absorbed tears from 400 years, kissed with the graces of titanium, but even the strongest gets weak. Seeking understanding for my legacies, on bending knees for my seeds, hearing other mothers crying, Lord, please, not my baby. And no matter if she's 25 or 80, that's somebody's baby, and that anguish never goes away. When did the war on terror become the home of terror? Terrorized only by my demographics I was born with. Hands up, don't shoot, it's only candy and juice. It's my baby's birthday, I'm only carrying some shoes. Or questions of what did I even do can get you judge and jury on the side of the street, convicted without a trial's confusion, guilty by association, punishable by death while the system continues to help. You see, freedom ain't free, but ask me when it didn't come at a high cost to be black in America, home of the free test rats of Tuskegee, Tulsa, Oklahoma bombings, alligator-baited babies, every innocent man killed at the hands of the police since the 70s. And if I'm not mistaken, we didn't get our equal rights until the mid-60s when we stopped working for free and demanded the right to just be. Live like human beings, still threatened in the night by the day teachers, store clerks and the police, those strange fruits hunting children walking 5 miles, just for an education that never educated our youth. How can you expect us to maintain a nonviolent spirit in a violent atmosphere designed to tear us down and brutally murder us on the streets like rabid animals? Caged us like birds with clipped wings and expected us not to fly, laws to openly carry a bull's eye on our backs, and I'll ask again, who is going to protect our babies? Who is going to show proof that we all stand together for us all? Who is going to stand beside me? Well, when?